Hey everyone, it's Megan. Welcome again to Allie's Books and Movies. Today I will be going over my January wrap-up / February TBR. I was pretty good this month. I managed to read a total of 10 books, well, one audiobook and one graphic novel included in that, so let's get started. The first book I got through was the audiobook Seriously I'm Kidding by Ellen DeGeneres. This I gave 5 out of 5 stars because I love everything that Ellen ever does. It was hilarious. I would just be listening to it while I was like unpacking or cleaning or whatever, and she would make me laugh so hard. It was wonderful. In it, she covers like every topic that you could possibly imagine and just does it with such hilarity and flair, and yes, I just love everything she does. The next book completed was a graphic novel by Cory Doctorow, and it is called In Real Life. It is a wonderful story about this girl, I think she's around 15 years old, who goes and plays this online game where you play as somebody, as a character. It's this really great story. It's about capitalism. It takes on this kind of this text that like we don't really tackle in graphic novels. Like, it was just really interesting. The artwork was beautiful. It was just an all-around great story, and I wound up giving it 5 out of 5 stars. The next book that I finished, I ended up starting in 2014, and all I could say in my Goodreads review was that I wish I had finished it back in 2014 so that I could have put it in my best reads of 2014 video, because it was that good. It is Gloria O'Brien's History of the Future by A.S. King. This is A.S. King's newest book. It just came out in October, and it stars this girl, Gloria O'Brien, who is graduating from high school, doesn't really know what she's going to do with her life, and she's still haunted by her mother's suicide years before. Basically, it's about her finding herself and learning about herself through her mother's dark room that they have down in their basement, and trying to figure out why her mother did what she did, and is she going to end up the same way. Throughout most of the book, well, what happened was she and her best friend, they found a dead bat. They kept it for a while, and then her friend's mom found it and basically cremated it, and her best friend took the ashes, and in a drunken haze they mixed it with beer and drank it, and from then on they were able to see things. It's just interesting. It just goes with A.S. King's glorious magical realism motif that she tends to put through all of her stories. Anyway, I just found it amazing, so well written, addictive. It was just wonderful. Definitely one of my favorite books of 2015 that I will be talking about later on. But yeah, needless to say, I give this 5 out of 5 stars, and I highly recommend that you pick this up. The next book that I read is actually on loan to someone right now. It is More Weird Things Customers Say in Bookshops by Jen Campbell. This is a sequel to Weird Things Customers Say in Bookshops, also by Jen Campbell, and yes, I gave this one 3 out of 5 stars. I just felt like maybe she was in a rush to do it. I'm not sure. I know she had another book going at the time. Don't get me wrong, I still found it hilarious and had more like groaning like moments of just like why people why. But yeah, it didn't really live up to my expectations. Nonetheless, I am a huge Jen Campbell fan, as you shall see later in the video. The next book that I completed is The Bell Jar by Sylvia Plath. This is the first book in my 12 Months of Classics series that I'm just sort of challenging myself to do. So this is January's pick, and yeah, I absolutely loved it. It is about a woman who is kind of spiraling down, like in terms of her sanity, and just like she goes through this mental, emotional journey, and we watch her degrade and go down, and it's depressing to watch, but at the same time fascinating. And I just found myself enraptured throughout the whole story, wanting to know what would happen to this woman. And once I found out the backstory of Sylvia Plath, I became even more intrigued and, you know, started looking for autobiographical elements, and I found a ton. But yeah, I gave this 5 out of 5 stars. I can definitely see why it's gotten the hype that it has as a modern classic, and I look forward to reading more stuff by Sylvia Plath. Then for the last 2/3 of the month or so, I went on a bit of a middle grade tangent and read a few Nancy Drews. The first of which was The Sky Phantom. I gave this 3 out of 5 stars. It wasn't my favorite of the Drew series. I'm a huge fan of the original Nancy Drew mystery stories. I love them. I love the vintageness of them all, and the language and everything. It just feels like a time capsule. But this one wasn't so good. There was, like the title implies, there was a sky phantom, like there was this cloud, that magnetic cloud that was being changed in different shapes, and Nancy's a pilot through pretty much the whole thing, and mystery involved. It was okay, but wasn't my favorite. The next Nancy Drew that I read was The Secret of the Forgotten City. I gave this 4 out of 5 stars. I believe they go on an adventure to find this lost city underneath a river via these stone tablets, these ancient carved tablets. There was a lot of intrigue to that one. I did enjoy it a bit more. Still only gave it 4 out of 5. I can't remember why at the moment, but yeah. The final Nancy Drew that I read was The Strange Message in the Parchment. So yeah, I guess she's helping out a friend decipher a message, and there's you know, kind of tragic circumstances. A boy's been separated from his mother. Yeah, I found this one really interesting, actually. There were a lot of facets to this one that aren't present in the other books. Yeah, I really enjoyed this one. I also got through in just a couple of days, because it's so short, The Bad Beginning by Lemony Snicket. This is the first book in a series of unfortunate events by Lemony Snicket. As I mentioned in my 2015 TBR, I plan to reread the series with Matt because he has never read them before. And yeah, got through the first one okay, gave it 5 out of 5 stars. I haven't read the whole series in like 7, 8 years or something, like a really long time. If you don't know anything about this series, it was pretty popular some time ago. It is about the Baudelaire orphans, and they just run into a series of unfortunate events. Like, you think things are going to go fine for them, but they don't. Really, the whole thing is just an emotional roller coaster, because you're like, oh, they found somebody, they found a way out of this terrible situation, and then it's like, no, they didn't. Nonetheless, I'm looking forward to rereading the rest of the series. And the last book that I got through in January was Falling into Place by Amy Zhang. This book, I can't even. I don't even know of another booktuber who has talked about this, but they should. This should be a lot more recognized than it is. It was just amazing. It was about high school. That's what it's about, high school and teenagers, and just everything you can think of that a teenager can possibly go through, that you read about, that you see on YouTube. Just everything is in this book. Drunk driving, suicide, drugs, sex, everything is in this book. And it's just, it grips you from the beginning and all the way through. I cried during it. It was kind of devastating in some ways, and you just really don't know how it's going to play out. It's similar in some elements to If I Stay, the difference being that the girl in If I Stay actually is a nice person. So it's about this girl, Liz Emerson. She basically is trying to kill herself, and she goes off in her, I want to say Mercedes, off of this cliff in an attempt to kill herself, and it doesn't quite work. And the doctors basically say if she wants to live, she'll live. And so that's the basic premise, like the beginning. That's how it's set up. And then as you go through the rest of the story, all these layers come unfolded. You find everything about the backstory of her friends and her and this guy who reported the accident because he saw it and he's like in love with her. But yeah, it's really about gradually showing you everything and just laying it all out. And then once you know everything, it's like, okay, well, knowing all of this, is she going to stay? Is she going to choose to live? Anyway, I just was in love with this the whole month, or the whole time I was reading it. I just found it so gripping. Gave it 5 out of 5 stars. You definitely should read this if you have any interest in this kind of thing at all. So those are the books that I read in January. Let's move on to February. I have 7 books on my TBR, and I'm pretty excited about all of them. The first one I intend to read is My Fair Lady. This is the novelized version by Monica Dickens. So this is not original in any way. This was adapted from the Broadway musical that was adapted from the play Pygmalion by George Bernard Shaw. Telling the story of Eliza Doolittle. It is a classic story. It is a wonderful story that takes place at turn of the century. Well, turn of the century is in 1900. Basically, she is a flower girl that wants to become a lady, a proper lady, and so this professor, Henry Higgins, is going to teach her how to talk and walk, sit, stand, dress, eat like a lady, and it's a pretty fun journey. The next book that I intend to read, in going along with my 12 months of classics, is 1984 by George Orwell. This is a classic dystopian tale where everybody, like, reading has been eliminated and individual independent thought has basically been eliminated, and they all just follow this man called Big Brother, I think. And so there's this guy, Winston, and he meets this girl, Julia, and they find that they're going against the party, despite, you know, all opposition that they face. And so they've decided to form this Room 101 where people with original thoughts can go. I haven't gotten too far into it. I've just just started it, but I'm really interested so far. The next book that I plan on reading, keeping along with the Lemony Snicket trend, is The Reptile Room. In this episode, the Baudelaire orphans go to live with their Uncle Monty, Dr. Montgomery, in his herpetological mansion. He studies snakes, and obviously Count Olaf comes into the picture, and yeah, I know what happens. I'm pretty sure I remember what happens in this book, but what's great about not having read them for such a long time is that I don't remember everything. So it's great. I get to be reintroduced to all of it again. The next book that I plan on reading, which I've been really excited to read for a long time, is Aristotle and Dante Discover the Secrets of the Universe by Benjamin Alire Sands. This is the Little Book Club's pick for January/February. Little Book Club is run by Katrina of Little Book Owl. She's one of my favorite booktubers. It's a story about these two guys that are best friends. I think one's in love with the other, but I don't really remember. But it looks wonderful. The cover is absolutely beautiful, and I can't wait to read it. The next book I would like to finish, ideally, I have also already started, and it is The Bookshop Book by Jen Campbell. She has traveled to like around 300 bookshops around the world and is like talking about them in this book. And anyway, for book lovers and people who love to buy books, this is quite a wonderful, wonderful book. The second last book I plan to read is I'll Give You the Sun by Jandy Nelson. It is about this pair of twin siblings, a boy and a girl, Jude and Noah, and they are very close growing up, and then something happens and it splits them apart, and that was the prologue. And then now here we are, and we're going to figure out what's going on with them and get their backstories. I've read The Sky Is Everywhere by Jandy Nelson. I read that last year and really enjoyed it, so I know I like her writing. It's great. The last book that I'm intending to read is quite a big, it's quite big on BookTube, and it is These Broken Stars by Amy Kaufman and Megan Spooner. This month I have a perfect excuse to read it because it is the Booksplosion book of the month for February. It is basically Titanic in space. That's what I've heard. This guy and girl are on the ship and it crashes and they're the only survivors or something. And yeah, I understand it's heart-wrenching at times, but just all around really, really good and addictive. And yeah, I'm excited to read this. So that is it for my February TBR. If you've read any of the books that I have just mentioned there, please let me know in the comments. I would love to discuss and find out what your opinions are on them and everything. Just no spoilers. But I think that is it for this video. I should be along next week with my Top 5 and 10 Wednesday, and I do have a book haul coming up soon. I have some books, but not like a ton to show you at this point, so I'm waiting a little while longer. But thank you for watching. Please like, comment, and subscribe, and I shall see you soon with my next video. Bye, everyone!